Podcast. Fuck it. Hello, world. We're here.
Alright. Are we going?
Yeah, broadcast. I don't remember that.
Count the minutes and the seconds too.
Did you try and like look at it? Oh wait, I should text Liz to log into it. Text her. She probably won't.
I'm reading for this guy. I'm reading that was right up for it. I gotta keep writing. But I think that's the spirit of Unpublishable. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Remember the first time you did this? Let's do something good to that.
Hot.
Yeah, right? This is a good spot.
What street is this one, right? Monitor. There's a mine. Yeah, Chris, you see, I dug up the old school.
Yeah, got a couple extras. So we can log in this soon. Like, get the
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great.
What? Uh-oh.
Thank you. I always don't know where to keep it. I did bring
Broadcasting. Can you check on Zoom? I can't. It's not working on mine.
How do you, what's,
You have to register.
Yeah, Daniel and Suzanne are so worried about us fucking this up.
can we, do we know if it's a big ID?
You gotta register for it.
Oh.
Oh yeah. Oh shit. I can't stick right now. Chelsea Gerald in it.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna watch it. Have some, yeah, dude.
I can't find the.
Oh, you have to register. Did you not?
No, where?
Yes, if you go to the first day and then like. Did you get his books from work? I still don't have internet. I don't even have like yeah,
Some feedback guy. Working.
I feel like I remember it now.
Yeah, that's what it is. Which doesn't mean it's fine. What it's like, are you ready to talk about it? I think it's I want to get good. No,
Watching the live. Get tight. Sorry, Grace. Couple chairs. I only requested.
He gets to have a chair. Because I'm elderly. And the sun peeking out.
That works been busy. Yeah, I've been going on site a lot. There's some reason like effective enclosing like all the way down all the places. I know. But yeah, it's work life. Relaxing. Yeah. How about you? Yeah, just working. During the week, just working around the bike. Yeah? We've been watching lots of scary movies. Yeah.
Orientation day, he was like, hey, me thoughts. I was like, wait, what?
No, I said, are you the boss? Like,
Yes,
friends
yes,
with me?
okay,
No.
Yeah.
You did look freaked out. How do you know? Because Chris told me.
How do you know it's No, because like I had it in my hand. Like put it in the bag. Or I was like, oh.
Like, very little bit.
This isn't a baby deodorant. This is a regular size. Yours is like a backpack. It looks like you take it everywhere. like a Cub Scout or a Boy Scout. A purse. I literally took out the doggy poop bags out of my purse when we were coming out. I do have 2 wallets in here though. Why do you have 2? One has all the credit cards and one is my regular wallet. No, I haven't checked anything.
This link is live.
I don't know if people are on.
Yeah, no.
What is it like?
Yo!
Zoom link. If some people want to like watch on Zoom.
I know if you sent through to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
I think Anya and CJ.
It's not on your thing.
I know.
Was that CJ here?
For a bit. Yeah. We just Yeah. So you did take it for a little bit?
I took her around like noon, and then I took her up at 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was just right. I hate being
I got
drunk.
like a bathroom wine. Oh my god, no, actually.
Yeah, what you say? I was with a girl from, I called it New Frog.
Hey, yeah. Hey. Yes, yes. Awesome. I know, that's crazy. Last minute, like really sick. That's scary.
Well, she said that it's like global. I mean, go so this is
Is it like
Super. Yeah, let me see what the thing basically just, let me know what remarks I should make before you go on. She's like 4:30.
okay? You want me to send you?
Yeah, maybe text me. 616.
616?
Yeah, Michigan.
We're in Michigan right now.
We're in Michigan.
In Arbor. You know,
Shit.
She was doing the autofiction thing.
Yeah, yeah. So I haven't met her, but I'm familiar with the cassette.
She's my partner.
Oh, good.
So
So
she's
you guys
doing
are.
the
Okay. All right. Well,
Six and
nice.
six.
Yeah, 16. Well, I mean, like college towns, it's like the floor is
Yeah.
higher
I
than
mean, you're right. You're right. 6 and 6.
648-5057.
Is this cider? GM cider?
Yeah. Oh wait, let me see. I just I see your mask.
Yeah, I mean, my mother made me this guess. Oh, God. My favorite part.
Yeah.
People don't need it, you know. Audience is high in the chat already, so we can be.
Is there? Oh yeah. Can you see who's there? Wait,
Oh yeah, if you go to participate.
Oh, CJ. Larry Molnar. Shout out Larry Molnar.
Scott Gorsman.
Scott Gorsman. Shout out Scott Gorsman. What's up?
So, for everybody tuning in on Zoom, we'll be getting started in maybe 10 minutes or so, so feel free to go do your thing and hit the back.
We have a hot cider if you want some. I'll get some. If you want it.
Well, I mean, that iPad is like, that's real art. Like, yeah. It's so nice. I'm so poor, you know?
Wait, what?
If you want cider, you can come get it from me over here. Also, we have books, but if you want cider,
I want it today.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
How big it is? Also, the handle of it.
I don't know how. He touched it in some way, shape, or form. I have to ask him.
You should ask him.
Yeah, right down.
Hello, hello. Can everybody hear? Can everybody hear over Zoom? Let's see. Hello, hello.
Okay, good. Okay.
Okay, hello, everybody. This is the book launch for Unpublishable. This is the second book from Archway Editions, which me and Nick here started as part of powerHouse Books, where this is our first experiment with doing an outdoor event. So hopefully it goes off without a hitch. You can buy books and t-shirts, and we also have cider and some Reese's pumpkins bookmarks for free. And so Unpublishable is an anthology of works that were read at the Unpublishable event series that me and Eitan here hosted at powerHouse Arena for about a year. But hopefully nobody reads anything from Unpublishable because it's all now publishable.
So I guess we'll be reading a little bit from the introduction. Okay. So what was Unpublishable? It began with the reading series at Columbia University's MFA program called Gallery. It was infrequent and hidebound. Few students ever got the chance to read. We decided to start an ungallery at powerHouse Arena, where I worked, and to make a series inclusive of different styles and voices and implicitly against the academy. After graduating, we wanted to continue what had been a successful series while breaking out of the Columbia scene. Eitan recalled how in Tel Aviv, genres were rarely siloed, and arts events always were unpredictable and were exciting in a way that readings never are, at least in America. Using these ideas, we created Unpublishable, which is based around the idea that any artist has work which they love but they can't publish, and for any number of reasons, a genre that they've never worked in before, offending of sensibilities, although always in good faith, impossible to place for publication, or the eternal struggle of an unknown author, or simply a style that the world hasn't yet lit on as great.
So as we canvassed for writers, the response was far beyond what we expected. James Canyon brought a brilliant piece about an acquaintance, Suburbia, whose permission he had never received and now couldn't find. Jean Keon Fraser read her character building practice writing. Steve Anwell practically broke the series with his searing, controversial piece, which Bud Smith later said he's tried to make him edit but couldn't. A surprising number of writers were insulted by the idea that anything they would write could be called unpublishable, which only said something about them. What exactly is unclear. Bud says his outlook is that everything is publishable, fitting his beautifully optimistic nature, but not ours. Eileen Miles found something for us that had only been published in translation and read it in the Poetry Project instead, keeping our anti-establishment, possibly even anti-establishment, cred intact. The events themselves were one of a kind, never to be seen again. Harach Arbach, combined reading and video, cannot be fully replicated here, let alone the installment of the Wild Radio series that Chris projected with Brent Kite. The uproar around Steve's piece and a subsequent reading under the Manhattan Bridge. Mary Bew Anderson timed Tweet Storm. Phil Pope reading John Ferris. Nina Hamedi and Naomi Fox, specially written, uncategorizable piece, hampered by a broken PA in front of a packed house, now reprinted here in full. We really wanted musicians, scientists, artists, but settled for just the most eclectic group of writers we could gather.
Now with this series safely in the rear view, we can already take credit for being an incubator. 2020 brought thrilling debuts from Jean, Arash Azizi, and Jameson Fitzpatrick. Chris Gonzalez, and Daphne has a book coming out, as well as Chris Gonzalez next year. I founded Archway Editions with Nick, and we'll be publishing John Ferris's last poems, in addition to Unpublishable and a play by Ishmael Reed, which you can also buy here. Mina Hamedi is now an agent for Janko Nesbitt, and James Kenyon found Suburbia. And of course, everything is now in print, right here, right over there. In true unpublishable form, the nature of these works remains provisional, defying logic. Everything that is unpublished should be published and vice versa. This is writing from the margins that is becoming integral. And of course, once these authors have taken over, it will be time for a new unpublishable to rise up. Now I'll introduce our first reader. Our first reader is Andrew Tran. He's reading on behalf of Steve Anwell. He is a writer from Virginia. That's the bio. Here you go.
Hello, can you hear me? Reading for Steve, was kind enough to DM me about this. This is called fruit fly. After Morgan dipped out, the fruit fly moved into my apartment. Today it hung out in the living room, crashing on the sofa in the early afternoon while I did office work on my laptop. I typed sentences into a Word document as the fruit fly snored and whistled a jazz tune in its sleep. When it woke up, it flew around in my kitchen and nibbled on the bruised Bartlett pears from my glass bowl as I smoked the joint on the balcony and watched it suck the juices out the fruit. It looked at me and grinned, and I stared at my feet. They were covered in ash. I went inside and closed the sliding glass door, looking up as the fruit fly hovered on top of the room near the ceiling fan rotating back and forth. I would get sliced by a fan, turning into bits and pieces. It weaved in and out of the wooden panels as it spun around in slow circles. And it landed on the Formica countertop and laid on its stomach, blowing snot bubbles. I went into the bathroom and sat on the toilet with my sweatpants around my ankles. I was constipated. Maybe this was why Morgan left me, because I had a problem. I had many problems. I didn't have the answers. What I had was that fruit fly. I washed my hands with hot water and soap, and when I went back into the living room, the fruit fly was dry humping a plum in my wicker basket. I rushed back to the bathroom, got on my knees, stuck my finger down my throat, and puked out my guts. When I stepped back into the living room, the fruit fly was making love to the plum with black passion. It was thrusting back and forth and moaning. I opened the front door and told it to get out. It kept licking the plum, sucking on its fruit, gripping its peel. I cleared my throat and opened the door wider. Please go, I said. It looked at me with its Coke-bottled eyes and sneered. It spat on the carpet and flipped me off. It called me a prude and mooned me. I went into the storage closet and grabbed a fly swatter. And then I ran back into the living room, swinging at the fruit fly. I smacked it and it launched against the window, sliding down the glass until it hit the ground. I walked over to it, looking down at it. The fruit fly looked up at me and rolled on the carpet to the left, dropping into the air vent. I got on the ground and reached over to get it, watching it fall into the deep, dark well. I stood up, walked over to the couch and sat down. My phone started ringing on the coffee table. I curled up against the cushions and stared at the window, looking at the fragmented construction site, the raindrops spilling on the concrete. I fell asleep. I dreamt that I was laying on the ground, getting hit in the face by plums, big and small, ripe and rotten. I woke up on the couch, drenched with sweat, my breath shallow. I went to the bedroom. I did 2 lines of K off my phone and smoked a bowl. When I was feeling high, I sat back into the living room and giggled. I giggled and giggled and giggled some more. The fruit fly was flipping pancakes in the kitchen, whistling a familiar jazz tune. The apartment smelling like chocolate chips and bananas. I pulled up a chair and sat at the long marble island. I stared at my hands and breathed in deeply. I'm sorry I hit you, I said. I shouldn't have done that, but you also shouldn't be fucking a plum in the common area. Do you know what I mean? Can you understand me? The fruit fly poured orange juice into 2 glasses and gave me one as it leaned back against the countertop. I drank the juice and clicked its teeth. I get it. I'm sorry. That won't happen again, I promise, it said. I nodded. I appreciate that, I said. Anything else, it asked? I thought about it for a moment and said, need to help out with rent. How, it asked. With money? Haven't you ever paid rent? It shook its head. I'm a fruit fly. What's money? After I explained the concept of money to the fruit fly, I rolled a joint with some papers and mediocre weed. I coughed out smoke and passed the joint to the fruit fly. It did a big hit and made a smoke cloud. Why'd you try to kill me? It asked. I grabbed the joint and took another hit and sighed. I wasn't trying to kill you. I was trying to stun you. I'm sorry again. Stun me? With a fucking fly swatter? I could have died. I thought about it for a moment and the fruit fly was right. I almost killed it, but I didn't. I thought I was being decent to it. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next reader is Evan Gorsman. Evan Gorsman is a writer from Long Beach, California. He received his MFA from Columbia University and lives in Brooklyn, where he is working on his first novel.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining for In the Park and on Zoom. In keeping with unpublishable fashion, I wrote this 2 days ago about some ideas I had from a little bit longer ago that I forgot and then wrote them down. So here it is. It's called True Random. Some fancy Silicon Valley tech firm installed a wall of cameras on a busy corner of Hanoi. It's an unremarkable corner. It's one long fence made of corrugated metal that encloses an empty lot. The fence is long rusted away, and stray dogs poke their heads out and beg for scraps as people pass on the sidewalk. I lived in an apartment in the middle of the block and watched men in yellow vests and hard hats meticulously install a structure, one I thought would be for an advertisement billboard. Slowly, it took shape, and by Friday, thousands of tiny cameras were hung by wires in the frame, so it looked like a fishing net stretched out to dry. I presume because no more workers returned, someone somewhere had flipped a switch, and now this corner, my corner, was being constantly recorded by 500 or so tiny little eyes. Weeks went on, and the wall of cameras, like all things, faded into the background of my life. It was a novelty, a wall of cameras, but cameras existed everywhere, on my laptop and phone, on traffic lights and ATMs. It wasn't until a man in a hard hat returned that the structure once again became unique. He was British and sweaty and eager to answer the questions I shouted over the fence. He told me that the cameras aren't recording or surveilling, they're just monitoring movement. They take this movement of birds and of dogs, of cars and scooters, and of people, of me, the man said, and turns it into numbers. True randomness, he explained, isn't something a computer can do. It's like asking a calculator to guess. It's just not possible. So we need outside stimulus to produce numbers that can mimic what true randomness is. I imagine numbers with funny sounding descriptors, hexajillion, googabillion. The man said the data is used for keys and totems, passes to high profile banks, numbers for passwords, for bank transactions done by tech firms and governments, used to lock blockchains and disguise purchases on the dark web. He swirled his hand over his head, the chaotic swirl of life that we use to randomly generate numbers. What if this was a one-way street, I asked, or the same flock of birds who passed every day? Would that not disrupt the numbers? It would be hard to say, the man said. I just fixed the cameras. With that, he shrugged on a safety harness and prepared to climb the small ladder on the back of the structure. Something about rain having shorted out a cable. How did you choose my corner? I asked. Oh, he said. We just put them on the cheapest lots we can find. Now that I knew the purpose of the structure, it did not fade into the background. Instead, it stared at me morning and night, an unblinking bug's eye, watching as I went to the shops, gleaming in the dim streetlights at night, static and unchanging, but always accounting for everything. One day, I decided to walk back and forth across the camera's field of view. I figured 20 times on the sidewalk across the street from the structure would be something concrete. Maybe it would register. Maybe the very fact I was doing this is meaningless. I chalked it up as exercise, something silly to disrupt my day of emails. I did this every day for a week, whenever I felt like I needed to stretch my legs. But then the next week came, and I set an alarm so I would walk on my lunch hour. I would leave my computer so I could stand on a crack outside the laundromat at exactly 12:30. Here I would walk 20 yards, the range I felt the viewfinders in the lens could see, then turn around and walk back. I did this for an hour every day. I made the discovery that if I walked with my lunch, as I had one day, dogs in the lot followed me up and down, wet snouts sticking up in the air as they mirrored me, trotting along the empty lot. Maybe it meant nothing, and this back and forth stroll was nothing more than a random digit in a sequence with no end. The infinite whirl churned out data and data and data. Collectively and individually, it all means nothing. Assigning some meaning would be removing the point. The stream pings from signal to satellite, through space into server farms and across the globe. Several years later, a young graduate tasked with analysis notices the 37th digit in the 14th hex is always the number 8. They go back years and find the same thing, but it means nothing. They track it for some time, then forget all about it. It's a weird quirk maybe, an error in the coding, but no, they think, no, it has to be like that. That's true randomness. Thank you.
Our next reader is Daphne Palacio and Riadas. Her debut novel is forthcoming from Random House. Daphne earned her MFA in fiction from Columbia University, where she was awarded the Henfield Prize and a creative writing teaching fellowship. Find her at daphnePalacionRiadas.com.
Okay, hello to everyone here, and hello to loved ones watching. I'm going to be reading from the opening of a short story. It's titled The Emancipation of Alyssa Angeles. The night Alyssa announced to her mother and younger sister that she'd accepted a new job in Boston, she might well have told them she was moving from Queens to Jupiter. In the family's tiny kitchen in Ridgewood, her mother's stir fry began to burn. The scent of charred garlic filled the air and stuck to their clothing. When her mother finally noticed the blackening diced bits, she tossed in the okra and pork and began mixing them furiously with her wooden spoon. "Just gosh," she wailed, "we don't have any family there. Why do you want to move there?" Alyssa had expected this response. "Ma, relax. It's a 4-hour drive. You can visit anytime," she added. "And I'm 33 now, remember? I don't need some auntie to survive." It had been this event, Alyssa's 33rd birthday, that had prompted her to seek a change. Not just a minute change, like dyeing her hair ombre like every other millennial, or booking an expensive trip to some place she'd never been, Paris, Mexico City, but a substantial, permanent change. So when Alyssa's boss mentioned the physical therapist opening at the new office in Boston and asked if she would consider transferring, she surprised herself by saying she'd think about it. Had he asked a year ago, Alyssa would have said no. Boston, what's in Boston? She couldn't leave her family behind. But what she wouldn't have admitted to herself was that it was fear of change that held her back. When Alyssa drove to Boston for her interview that week, nervous and dressed in a too small Ann Taylor blazer, the head physical therapist had offered her the job on the spot. "You've been doing this for 8 years," she said, "which means that we wouldn't have to train anyone. And you're familiar with the company's standards. Can you start next week?" Alyssa gaped like a fish and eventually choked out a nod. She was overjoyed. "I'm 33, she thought in the kitchen, as she watched her mother's eyebrows pinch together, her mother's signature move right before she was about to cry. 33, an age when most of Alyssa's friends and cousins were married, had kids, owned condos or houses, or at the very least had their own place. Alyssa still lived in the tight-knit Filipino home she did as a girl. She was boyfriendless and husbandless, childless, condoless, had none of these markers of success. At least not yet, she told herself. "I can't believe you're fucking leaving me with them," said Lyra, Alyssa's younger sister. Lyra stood in the doorway as Alyssa began to sort through her clothes, deciding which items to keep and leave behind. She glanced up at her sister's round face. A child's face, she thought, though Lyra was 28 and in the process of finishing her second bachelor's degree. It was a lack of ambition or resourcefulness, or both, Alyssa had suspected, that explained why Lyra had never found a job related to her first degree, or any job for that matter. Lyra had returned to school to study physical therapy, which was what Alyssa herself had majored in. Their mother was a physical therapist as well, their family's trade. Her younger sister, after listening to stories of senior citizens with botched hip replacements and gruesome car accidents who had to relearn how to walk, once said, "I never want to do that job." At the time, she was 19 and crafting set designs for her college's plays. She'd majored in theater instead. And as Alyssa remembered, their mother hadn't given Lyra shit for that decision. She was the youngest, could do whatever the fuck she wanted. But now, years later, here she was joining the physical therapist club. You're leaving me for the two of them, Lyra whined. I can't fucking believe you. When Alyssa and Lyra were girls, they'd fought constantly. Who got to take hot showers first in the mornings, what TV show they'd watch in the living room as they sat on sagging couches, and why the younger sister was never asked, not once, to do the dishes. You baby her, a teenage Alyssa once pointed out to their mother. In response, her mother had mumbled some excuse about Lyra being born premature, about Lyra being delicate, tuned out. And their father, he had said nothing about Alyssa's move, also in line with what she'd expected. He never spoke unless he had a few glasses of vodka. And let me tell you, he'd say to Alyssa and Lyra when they were girls, if they happened to cross paths with him in the kitchen, en route to getting a bag of shrimp chips or ice cream sandwiches. Marcos, you know Marcos, he'd say, former dictator of the Philippines, sit down, sit down. He motioned to the empty chairs across from him. Alyssa and Lyra were forced to join him. His wife, Imelda, had 2,000 pairs of shoes, 2,000, while his men were kidnapping people, while the entire country had to be inside their houses by 9 because of the curfew. This conversation needs a curfew, Alyssa would whisper to Lyra. They'd giggle, co-conspirators. Thank you.
Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah. There we go. This is our microphone sanitizing routine. If anybody wants some cider, can people come up and get cider tonight? Okay. Introduce our next reader. Josh Boardman is from Michigan. He is the author of the chapbook Plantain and conducted the Latin translation project We Romans. His stories have appeared in journals such as The Fanzine, New York Tyrant, Bull, Maudlin House, and Catapult. He lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where he is working on his first novel and a collection of stories about his hometown.
Hey y'all, this is from the book I'm working on. I don't know, it's not really a novel actually. My brother died when I was 9, cancer something, slurped his spinal cord, snatched away the movement of his legs, wheelchair bound. Tremors shook his hands, so his handwriting looked like lightning. Recently, I was helping my parents unpack after they finally moved away from Michigan, when I found a black and white composition book scrawled private. I recognized that handwriting instantly. My brother had kept a sparse diary speckled with funny little poems. I think they speak more subtly than he intended them to, so I'm compiling them here under the title Jeremy's Laughing Poems, as it seems to me they were written miraculously in laughter. All the other details of his life, the sickness we knew as an alien member of our household, the deterioration of his body, etc., I offer only to give some context to these poems, which seem to be the truest traces of his now dispersed self. When Jeremy arrived home from outfitting his new chair, it was the 13th hour of the day, that 13th month after I had been born. Climbing up the front steps on hands and knees, he was greeted by a little boy scampering naked from the back bedroom, pursued by the next door girl who was home on break. She was the older sister of his best friend, and he loved her. Her waxy brown hair swept my body. My baby penis wagged. My brother crawled into his new chair. A cold rush of blood prickled his armpits and the tops of his cheeks. Out of breath, he wheeled himself into the hallway, and the rhythm of his heart tapped in Morse code. Once you were beloved, but now you are eclipsed. You see, it has already begun. He jerked the blackout curtains shut. In sleep, a miracle happened. Fog billowed in from under his curtains, and in the middle stood a featureless gray man without clothes. This man spoke quickly in language mostly unknown to my brother. But one jotting remains from this time, which attributes to this man the following words: I am thy master. In the crook of one arm, he clutched a blanket in which wriggled the plush limbs of a baby. In his other, he presented a gizzard-pale mass that pumped in peristalsis. Behold thy sickness. One piece at a time, the gray man coaxed the baby to take bites from the flesh with toothless gums until everything was consumed. When my brother shocked from sleep, there was only the curtain. The clock screen readout confirmed 2 in the morning, the last of the 13 hours since my brother had arrived at home in his new chair, confronted by myself and the neighbor girl. He peeked between the curtains, looking for any sign of the gray man. It had started to snow, and he wrote the following haiku. Snowflakes falling down from the dark and blackened sky, sharp as knives can be. I never saw my brother's notebooks until many years after he died. He always fluctuated between anger and shame, but I never understood the cause. This poem makes his behavior obvious. Whenever he came home up the plywood ramp my father had constructed for him, he heard a giggling coming from the family room. My sweet baby body grew on the carpet. He brimmed like a glass over full, and the excess weeped bile into his lower quarters. His fingers tingled. And if our mother placed a hand on his shoulder, watching me from just inside the door, and asked him if he could believe how big I was getting, he must have said that sickness made me so. My skin like whipped cream, my hair a burning bush. For as sickness made him, just like a tipped over wheelbarrow, the same cruel man transferred the power of his body into mine. Who could look on his face and not discern the true nature of sickness? And who can look on mine still and not see the same? Cold hands scooped the silky entrails from his belly and fed them to me, string by string. It's no sadness in my life that I gnawed his bones to their marrows, though it should be. Maybe at this point, some worthy reader wishes to know more of my own remembered relationship with my brother. I can tell you that I loved him. I can tell you I pitied him. I can tell you I thought he was cool. But to tell you true, I have to go beyond just listing the positive. Where's the truth in a partial stitchwork of what I tell my mom and dad? I liked riding his scooter. Once he cradled me in his laughing lap, and when we took a turn too fast, we both went flying. My mother screamed down the driveway how we both needed to be more careful. He was never careful with me. He treated me true to how he felt. As his sickness progressed, my own body grew strong. I was disembodied antagonist. I wraithed around the neighborhood unsupervised as my mother kept her eyes hawked to his chair. In respect of the man, I will not be careful with his memory. I didn't like him. I wasn't sad. The truth is, I wasn't sorry. But I write these words, and my hand automatically scratches the word regret. Such defines the mirrored nature of our relationship. He often blackened my eyes out of annoyance in automatic gesture. Only after he saw the result of his violence did his mind take over and allow space for him to comfort me in his lap. As for me, I require enormous labor of will to speak the truth about how I feel, that I didn't like him. And the reaction which comes automatically is one of alleviation. Sickness pressed his trajectory downward, while on the other end of the seesaw trended upward. In his notebooks, I find a sonnet called Joshua. Joshua is my little brother's name. To me, he's very fun to have around. I wasn't quite so pleased when first he came. Obscurity is where I felt me bound. A mighty scream packed into tiny size. Sometimes I truly wished he'd let me be. But he grew and crawled and walked before my eyes, and Joshua soon meant the world to me. When I get home from school, Josh waits for me. I change, and then we play around a ton. We play with toys, watch Foot on TV. I never knew a brother could be fun. But Josh is cute and means a lot to me. Now I know I'll want to have my own son. This sonnet can be broken into 5 parts. In the first part, my brother names the subject and establishes the saccharine tone with which he will proceed. In the second part, he describes his initial conflict with my birth, which had persisted at least until the time when he wrote the poem. The third part constitutes a first turn in which my brother comes around to affection through the growth and strength of my body. In the fourth, he describes some of the things we did together and employs the baby talk foot, my childhood word for football, to capture the domestic timbre. In the final part, my brother turns his focus to a future he knows is impossible. I first read this poem as a picture of my mother texting me. I felt nothing. I didn't believe the words on the page. In fact, I don't believe my brother believed them either. After establishing the tone in the first part, the poem immediately plunges into negativity, and the turn back to warmth that follows is justified by the very growth of my body, which so pained him. The final turn to the things we do, to his own future, rings false, not only because he speculates a wholly imaginary future, which surely he wanted. What person is so at peace with their own expiration that they cannot conceptualize a life beyond? But the rhyme scheme locks into the stanza previous, so the facile rhyme of me with me, fun with son, feels more like touretic reprisal than organic consequence. The final couplet represents a race to the finish. I don't want to talk about these poems anymore.
Our next writer is Kate Olsen. Kate has a BFA in writing from Pratt Institute and will soon begin working towards her MFA in fiction and nonfiction at Bennington Writing Seminars. Her writing has appeared in Hobart and Selfish magazine.
Hey everyone. So in the beginning of the pandemic, I spent 3 months working in a warehouse or a fulfillment center for Amazon. And so this is excerpts from a piece, a story based on that. So it's called Fulfillment. Baby wipes, coffee pods, Gatorade, wireless earbuds, cast iron skillet, plastic owl with rotating head, board game, garlic press, bed bug spray, wind-proof travel umbrella, Senna laxatives, powdered lube, weighted blanket 30 pounds, baby wipes. Jigsaw puzzle, 1,000 pieces, Red Bull, RFID blocking wallet, genetic testing kit, hair dryer, tampon flasks, You by Kotex tampon super, essential oils, smart plug, Imodium pressure cooker, baby wipes, 1 pound bag, dried chicken feet, reusable straws, squatty potty, batteries, copper grill mat, Apple Watch, used book, good condition, silicone wedding rings, silicone cock rings, communication wafers, unconsecrated, bed sheets, selfie stick, baby wipe, scented candle, mouth guards, rapid fill water balloons, stand to pee device, gummy vitamins, screen jar / voice silencer, ultimate gun cleaning kit, zip ties, wireless earbuds, bathroom drain hair catcher, condoms, condom style bottle stoppers, first response pregnancy tests, 3-pack, Nicolas Cage pillowcase set, baby wipes, vitamin C serum, Play-Doh mug warmer, baby nasal aspirator snot sucker, coffee grinder, Roomba, external battery, everything but the bagel seasoning blend, Chromebook, callus remover, dandruff shampoo, instant pillow inflatable hoodie, pull-ups, hypoallergenic waterproof mattress protector, novelty knee socks, before you go toilet spray, witch hazel fruit cups, lactation pads, vibrator, batteries, baby wipes. Scan, box, tape, label, scan, repeat. In this way, 10 hours pass. We all know why we're here. Jen, the guidance counselor, is doing this as a summer job to help her save for her master's in psych. Ben is saving to start a meditation camp for kids. Masha is contributing to her grandchildren's college fund. Sean, like me, is here because, well, what else is there? We can speak about box sizes and numbered code. We have a shared knowledge of company acronyms. We compare unflattering ID badge photos. We've nicknamed the 12 packs of soda backbreakers, call the sex toys little friends, and the diapers shit bags. We roll our eyes performatively every time we see another box of baby wipes, and laugh to ourselves each time we let something heavy pass by, dooming those assigned to the stations behind us. We see who can go the longest packing just stuffed animals and bags of potato chips, or else who can pack the most backbreakers in a day. We recommend painkillers and brands of Epsom salts to each other on our lunch break. We refer to Redacted's CEO as Beelzebub and wonder aloud to each other about the extent of our non-disclosure agreements. We call the cast iron skillets murder machines. We hate these fucking vests. Baby wipes, bulk bag, gummy bears, 5 pounds, lice shampoo, leather purse designer knockoff, antifungal athlete's foot cream, 1% clotrimazole, canned soup, vegetable spiralizer, tortilla toaster, preparation H, rapid relief with lidocaine, yoga mat, diapers, brass cremation urn, adults up to 200 pounds, bowling ball, Gatorade, bath bomb gift set, board game, ranch dressing 2-pack, ranch dressing flavored soda, bacon flavored soda, buffalo wing flavored soda, baby wipes, playing cards, bubbly seltzer, white noise machine, eyebrow razors, Simply Safe 8-piece home security system, stuffed blobfish, used book, poor condition, weighted blanket 15 pounds, batteries, vibrating animatronic Japanese fuckface, jigsaw puzzle 500 pieces, non-alcoholic whiskey, taco-shaped sleeping bag, Clorox toilet wand, chicken harness, drain snake, wool dryer balls, scented candles, dial, antibacterial hand soap, Bluetooth speaker baby wipes, Barbie doll, Red Bull, e-reader, plastic rabbit mask, edible glitter, edible underwear, adult coloring book, gel pens, electric toothbrush, fitness tracker, Gas X dog food, board game, 10-pound bulk bag, dried mealworms, skeleton onesie, mini waffle maker, baby wipes, pool floats, monostat 1 day, blue light blocking glasses, batteries, Let's Fit elastic exercise bands, used book, like new, Ring doorbell camera, bathroom scale, dildo, wart remover, chia pet, Gatorade, weighted blanket, 20 pounds, gallon jug of rainbow sprinkles, orange Crocs, anal beads, baby wipes, water break, paper cut, Tylenol, repeat. Casinos are designed, windowless and clockless, to make their patrons forget about the passage of time. Midnight inside looks the same as noon. Time passes quicker when no one's watching it. And so the gamblers, they spend more money. And as insurance, the casino pipes in extra fun, loud music, exotic dancers, and free buffets. I think the warehouse was designed with similar principles in mind. Windowless, so the night shift looks mostly the same as the day shift. There are clocks, but they're hung from the ceiling so haphazardly that it's hard to work out in which direction you'll find one when you look up at any given moment. They must suppose that time still passes quicker when you can't find it. So maybe we're making them more money. And as insurance, they offer us insurance and hourly pay marginally above minimum wage. The idea is that this misplaced time might drift easier, float up, forgotten into the rafters, but the opposite is true. Time stands still in the warehouse, and with so much room, beneath those high ceilings, it swells, stretching out to fill the empty spaces. I laugh into the cardboard box I'm building at something a coworker said 5 minutes ago, that he said this morning, or maybe he said yesterday. The days all come through the warehouse, riding on conveyor belts like so much junk, and I grab them, build a box around them, tape it shut. All the days I've worked here are rattling around inside these cardboard boxes, and there is no way to tell them apart. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Right. Our next reader. Pull this up. Mary Boo Anderson is an artist and writer living in Brooklyn. Her art has been exhibited in museums and galleries across the US and abroad. Her poetry has been published in Peach Mag, Hobart, Metatron, and American Cordata, among others.
Hello, can everyone hear me all right? Yeah, okay, good. Woo! Shout out to everyone for coming. Shout out to Archway Editions. Amazing stuff. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Just gonna make it short and sweet, read some poems. All right. In IKEA at the end of the world, I'm eating 2 veggie dogs at IKEA, and it's empty because it's the end of the world. Wandering through the display room maze, Goldilocks trying every couch, bed, and chair. The thrill to own everything in a house that's not yours. Sexily sulking in so many different banal interiors. Sign, pension for. I didn't make this bed, but I'm lying in it. The world is over, wah wah. Paws to eyes, lips to chin. It's possible that the princess felt the pee under all of those mattresses because there was nothing else to feel. Right. Watching, waiting, commiserating. Car alarm on loop remains preferable to I told you so. My party heart, my body of work. Don't tell me my ramen isn't grown up. I put some kale in it, okay? The comforting refrain of a TV theme song. In Brooklyn, the motorbike boys still night ride down Nostrand. The street cats still make bodegas their homes. Sometimes the only good things are dogs and flowers. But then I remember fruit and horses and the couple giving out pineapples to everyone in this park. Hold music plays. It's called Capitalism in the form of me always just about to buy some pink Crocs as a consolation prize. Fingers stained with Takis. I'm reading on my phone at work again. That book everyone's reading. The one by that hot, new, young female essayist. My friend took a picture of every single page in the Barnes & Noble and sent it to me. I see her fingers holding back the pages. I understand not wanting to buy the hardcover, but also not wanting to wait. Today, I had a first session with a new therapist. I felt proud of myself when I told her, I'm really finding it difficult to talk to you because you keep dozing off. There is a woman taking a shit in this Whole Foods bathroom, and it's perfect. All right, it's the last one. This is an old one. Nice little throwback. All right, it's really quick. Thanks again for having me. It's called Eating Dinner from the Sides Menu. The only TV in the restaurant is showing Fox News. A weak connection makes the screen glitch pretty. B-roll landscapes chopped into cubes. The weatherman is sweating in his boxy beige suit. He says the climate is not changing, but no one asked him. Behind him, the heat map of America glows bright. A painting of blues and reds, rain and drought, turns into pixels, slowly buries the weatherman alive. My mom asks me why I'm smiling. Thank you.
Right. Maybe we'll introduce our next reader. The next reader is Nicodemus Nicoludas. He's a poet, adjunct, and bookseller living in Queens, New York. He is the author of the chapbook Natural History, and his work can be found in Yes, Poetry, Reality Hands, and elsewhere. He is the founding editor of Archway Editions.
I'll read some poems. None of them, they're from the last couple weeks, so none of them have titles, so I'm just gonna kind of go through them. Okay. Do you believe animals as we are the terrain of this life out here in this cold city? As we are, grasping for houses and clean water that in this heart made from creatures of long history and ancient lava flows, there's a space for a new world to grow out? Lichen black, the future is the landlord of today, and so the totality of seashells created and layers, all the beachfront properties soon to be upturned, reclaimed, and shameful as we are, we will mourn the house, not the sand, the nation, and not the exasperated mountain brush. I'm gonna slow down. I like kind of I write these really fast, so I always like want to read them really fast. So I'll try and slow down. Okay. I ask this landscape for inspiration, wanting to own the monuments of deep time of history, not so much the past, but the abstracted present forming and reforming, sediment in arc coast, brachia, like my body bending always to pick up napkins that have blown from the table to the sidewalk, or like the red-tailed hawks perched across the street, straining against the wind to dive and hunt the pigeons and sparrows, kicking up dirt or picking up small sticks, carrying them somewhere unseen to me now, though I look intently. I just want to know where all this stuff goes at the end of the day, but that is my selfishness again, always my daily habit of confusing the ocean floor for poetry or toxic clouds flared in the Gulf as lightning or campfires. For now, I am captured by the enormous stillness of old trees and all the places that still need to be set on fire. Winter this year will come on slowly over months, and I will continue to feed on peonies and the incomplete universe working constantly to unfinish itself. Here's a short. Estranged as I am from the hollowed mountains, clear-cut and dynamited, running out of room to further contort like coral, looking for breath between the statues swinging in the midnight of this state. Of course, I want to hollow out the sunset, swallow the midnight light pollution. Do you ever think we'll see the lattice of satellites in 747s? Let's see. Okay, this will be the last one. I disobey the wind when examining this interglacial verse in all the ways I am, in truth, so human, set to hum my palinodes like a riverbed gigantic. And I'm not going to call this resistance, but the actual slipping into darkness like the cigarettes the men outside the deli smoke between pulls from a bottle of mamajuana. But I am just reading into this radiance as the defiant soliloquy made exactly as it should be, alone and quiet, lasting only for the last of us who will cast our paychecks for a view of the stars, uncostly and totalitarian. All right, thank you.
Our next reader is Nifat Chowdhury. Nifat is a writer living in Queens, New York. She has an MFA from Columbia University and has been published in the 6th Season Review and Disconnect collected short fiction. Follow her on Instagram, Nifat.
Hi. This is called zit cream porn. There are 3 throbbing zits on my face. One on my forehead, hidden by my bangs. Another one on my left cheek, so dazzlingly white it is impossible not to make eye contact with it. The third is below my lip. It is the largest one, throbbing the most painfully. It's sitting right in the middle and is so inflamed that my whole chin is shiny and red like one big circus tent. I have no plans tonight. Yes, it's a Saturday night, and yes, all my friends are out doing exciting things like drinking cheap beer and catching up on life and getting blowjobs in the bathroom. But tonight I will stay home, turn a deaf ear to the sirens of the city, and dot my face with zit cream. The cream comes in a small tube that looks like a syringe. It's thick and dries to a cystic yellow. I apply generously, and when I am done, my face looks like a badly decorated cake. I look in the mirror and am disgusted by what I see. I almost want to wipe the cream off and pick at the zits instead, press against the hardness inside. There is a safety pin that I have that I sometimes hold over the flame of a lighter before pushing the point of it into my skin, breaking open that barrier that separates the world from my juice. The phone vibrates just as I am searching for the pin. It's a text from a number I have not saved but have messaged before. A small chat thread is evidence of a short-lived interaction. I have difficulty putting a face behind this hey. Hi, I text back. It's Matt, been a while, he replies. I don't remember a Matt. I can't recall if this is someone I met through an app or during grad school or at a bar. I try to remember some features, the feel of his hair, the shape of his eyes, the graininess of his tongue, but I remember nothing. He is shapeless to me, smoke and shadow. He texts me again. So what you up to tonight? Just at home, chilling, I write back. The dots bubble up almost immediately. I'm home too, alone, he writes, lol. I can't think of a reply to that. The safety pin is begging to be used at this point. I open my medicine cabinet to locate it, but my phone vibrates again. Show me what you're wearing, he says. I stare at the message and another one pops up below it. Lol. The punchline. I can't tell why he wants my photo. Is it because he also can't remember me? Or does he have a real recollection of my face and actually wants to see me? I look at myself in the mirror again and find it hard to believe that anyone could ever have found this face of mine desirable. I'm doing a face mask, I type back. That's hot, he says. Bubbles fade, then appear again. Skincare, am I right? It upsets me that even on a night when I choose to stay at home, I somehow end up cornered by a man, engaging me in feeble conversation. This is no different to how my night would be going if I was at a bar right now. Lol, I write back, imitating his language. The mask has to come off sometime, right? He sends. I think about that, looking at the creamy piping on my face. I was about to wash up the dots anyway, just to poke at them with a pin. I could just as easily wipe it off to send a photo. The zits will sit red and raw on my face then, angry at being exposed too soon. I lift up my shirt to take a look. to see if I can get away without sending a picture of my face at all. There are pimples nestled there too, not as menacing as the ones on my face, but still with a distinct swell to them. I wonder if I could turn the tables on him, avoid exposing myself altogether. I could say I don't want to wash the mask off just yet, that maybe he should entertain me for a while. He could show himself to me, and then maybe I will finally remember him. Oh yeah, there's a lot I could show you, he replies, adding a wink this time. I think I liked lol better than the wink. The wink has made it clear that he is preparing to send an image of his dick. I'm trying to figure out how to say that I want nothing more than a passport photo of him, but perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe he doesn't want to send me his dick. Maybe he's insecure about it the way I am insecure about my face. Maybe his dick is covered in zits and zit cream this very second. Do zits even grow on dicks? Do they pop during masturbation? Do they stay soft when the dick gets hard? I check my phone and find no new messages. With a damp napkin, I dab at my face until it is cream-free. I find the safety pin behind a box of tampons and hold it above my lighter. The tip gets hot and I aim it under my eye, pushing the point of it through the pimple on my cheek. Whiteness gushes like foam. My eyes water and I smile like I'm tearing up with joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Nevath. Our next reader is Naomi Falk. Naomi works in the publications department of the Museum of Modern Art, is the editorial director of Key Smith Gallery, and is the co-founder of Nazakai NYC.
Hi, thanks for coming. I had asked my friends for a target word count this morning, and now I think my piece is too long, so I'm sorry. This is called Incoming Message, and I wrote it this morning. Today, I got my feelings hurt on Instagram. This is a real problem for me. Incoming message, Mina Kitty loved an image. I rarely put my phone away to do the tasks that might actually benefit from my unwavering attention. Sometimes I believe that the act of flipping my screen towards the table is one of defiance, when really it's just a pitiful incoming message. Josh Swanson, ah yes, self-congratulatory way of showing others. Incoming message, Crass Molnar loved an image, that I am aware of my attachment to it. Incoming message, Jizzy Bach, what time today and where? So what am I doing on the internet? Ensnaring myself in unhappiness. I have 4 Finsta accounts and none of them, incoming message, Carly Di Pasquale, yay, okay, have made me feel I could share something my friends didn't already know about me. A mirror selfie of my underboob for absolutely no reason. A text message re 4 a.m. Molly water. A mood board of liminal suburban spaces and knives and cake with cigarettes instead of candles. And the crux of the matter is that this is my life. I'm not performing online because unlike the rest of this godforsaken neighborhood, I don't get paid to wear underwear by parade. And why do I even care? We all complain about how the algorithm fucks engagement with our posts. My OOTD squat in front of the mirror, fire emoji, hard eyes emoji, drooling emoji. I just find it funny how the men who want my mother and boss and other followers to know how bomb emoji, thumbs up emoji I am, aren't turned on by a 5-minute video of me playing Franz Schubert's Fantasy in C major, opus 15, Deutsch 934, movement 1, Andante molto. Incoming message, mom, oh great. Aren't hands sexy too? I'm sad that I've started to consider my IRL life as secondary to my email, Adobe Suite, Word doc, IG cargo page 1. So what composes it? On some days, the Chicago Manual of Style, a train to MoMA, Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and a coffee. On other days, a walk to the bodega, a quick Google search to translate I love you into Russian, taking 15 shots of tequila with my group chat. Incoming message, Liat Kaplan, attachment 1 image, incoming message, Jizzy Bach. Okay, so I could arrive at 4. On some days, bliss, on other days, pain. But at least I can say I'm doing something and not just scrolling through a feed of food hacks, shit posts, cursed images, and Cheetos corporate page tagged photos. I've always found that the feeling of pain or alienation is worthy of my sustained attention because when immersed in negative feelings, we are so eager to escape them. Incoming message, Jizzy Bach, Jesus. Incoming message, Carly Di Pasquale, yay, can't wait, love you. Incoming message, Andre, good noon. Incoming message, Jesse Limbo, did I hear vodka? My phone just died, so now there is no reprieve from discovering my reason for writing today. All artists have different ways of communicating pain. James Baldwin conjures fire with his hands and casts it like a lightning bolt into the sky. Chika Sagawa refuses to acknowledge it directly. Gregory Crewdson crystallizes it in the photographs of disengaged inhabitants of post-industrial America. What is most overwhelming about confronting pain for me is that it is as singular as a wall that must be scaled. It's not like being unfollowed by your ex on Instagram or like reading a lukewarm text message from a friend. It's not like receiving an anonymous DM about how much of a whore you are. There is no way around real pain. You're locked out. Pain expresses itself clearly as both a physical state and a mental one, towering above you, looking down upon you. Pain can be so severe that it overshadows all other senses and thoughts. Pain is like a place you go to by accident. When you arrive, you can't find the exit. Some people find pain to be romantic, nostalgic, bittersweet, perhaps a memory you revisit to shape it a little until it becomes extraordinary. But true pain, the kind that makes you sick, is not redeemable in this way. It must be faced or else it poisons from the inside out, elusive substance rotting you. You can drink it, but it won't help. This is real pain, and I won't liken it to a lived experience. We each know ourselves so well that we know that perhaps communicating it never gets at what we actually mean to say. This is why we hide certain things from our phones, the sound bites and pockets of conversation that would never allow for a sustained feeling. How small, my life, how paltry. These words, so general. I felt I must apologize for them and therefore for existing, for having the audacity to use language as a tool of expression. I'd arrived at the platform from which I'd left, so devastated by the predictable circle of my life. And here I am now, knowing nothing. Bliss arrives where the assignation of meaning ends, when the art means everything rather than anything. You can teach yourself to be free. Sometimes now I sing until I cry, and sometimes I want to be alone. I only write sometimes. I rub dirt into my hair and cast atheist spells on people I love. I want to bring them flowers. I take everything to be art until proven innocent. Sometimes you have to run away. Sometimes things become warmer, somewhere there's a light. So what? I feel better now after having said that than I felt before, I suppose. Carcass of my life. We emote and experience catharsis and continue on, leaving wake. I've left my phone unmonitored for an hour or so, and now its screen brightens, bringing once again incoming messages from the people I love. One thing we do a lot to each other is ask to reshare our posts when we have a new song, artwork, piece of writing to announce. It's not this brief celebration that draws us to continue working, though. There's a special joy, even in exploring sadness, that arises from within the period of creation. I liken it to religious fervor, or at least to what I imagine religious people must feel in their moments of connection with God. Golden incandescence dipped in violet of the divine, a fissure in the crust of the earth envelops you into the kingdom. It beckons, chanting, let your eyes pierce down below and be told answers. They are promised and will come to you and enchant you through the hours. A sphere of damp clay is shaped by time and memory, and it reminds you that the most significant things that happen to you alone, me with my pencil, and that they endow you with power, so that when you return to your populated landscape of incoming messages, you arrive each time as a person rebirthed, only connected to yourself of yesterday by a name.
Our next reader is Mina Hamedi. Mina moved to Manhattan from Istanbul in 2010. Her works attempt to unearth the thing that binds dreamscape and reality, and to understand what defines an individual's relationship to family. She is an agent at Janko Nesbitt Associates and co-founder of Nadekai NYC. Mina?
Hi, everyone. I also don't know how long this is, so whatever. This is called the Opium Fields, and it's little parts of a longer piece. Okay. My grandfather, Awesome, told me our family was born of a feud between three brothers. It was one of the few stories that have been passed down to him. He held on to these stories, oral versions of the truth, mixed with folklore and fables. He said the West could trace family histories over hundreds of years. Churches housed birth, death, and marriage records, but we weren't as lucky. Our stories were kept alive by people. Sometimes those people choose to leave their homes. They take their stories with them. There was a village called Küçükköy outside Afyon in Western Turkey. Afyon was a wealthy town during the Ottoman Empire, home to opium fields and marble quarries. Küçükköy was once led by three brothers, or Agya, the village heads. They were wealthy farmers, hardworking, resourceful. The eldest was named Halil Agya, born in 1802, and the younger brothers were Ali and Hussein. Halil was a natural leader. Ali had opinions. Hussein loved to laugh. In 1830, during the holy month of Ramadan, the brothers gathered in the town hall with village elders to break their fast. They drank sips of water. They tore off pieces of dates and let them melt on their tongues. They feasted on spicy meats, roast chicken seasoned with sumac, and rice boiled in butter and salt. Spotting the wishbone left over from the plate of chicken, the eldest, Halil, decided that whoever received the smaller part would have to ask his wife to serve coffee for everyone in the hall. Halil, confident that he would end up snapping the larger piece, reached first. He snapped off the smaller one. His brothers and the other men sitting around the table laughed, saying, "All right, Halil Aga, you better go inform your wife." Unrelenting, Halil Aga raised his head and said, "Absolutely not. My wife will not serve coffee to other men." "But that was the deal," Halil Aga said, standing up slowly. My grandfather said a fight broke out. Halil was a prideful man and couldn't laugh off what was meant to be a harmless bet between brothers. After these events, the three brothers abandoned their families and their belongings. They left the village. Ali Aga moved to another village, Hüseyin Aga to Güney village, and Halil settled in a village named Tazlar, surrounded by a forest and mountains. My grandfather didn't tell us anything else, but I wondered how the three brothers could leave everything, leave each other. Maybe they were looking for a reason to break away, finally. Maybe they wanted to go after new stories. He left the wife he fought over? How could he? Halil didn't divulge his new location to the people he left behind. He remarried and eventually became one of the village heads again. In 1862, his grandson was born, and they named him Hussein, after the great uncle he would never meet. This particular Hussein became the village chief and had several children, one of whom was named Ahmet. Ahmet was my great-grandfather. Ahmet married a quiet girl named Sata from the neighboring village. 2 years later, he joined the Ottoman army. He fought for 8 years, first for every front the Ottoman Empire engaged in, and later for the nationalists in the Turkish War of Independence. When Ahmet returned 8 years later, he and his wife had 5 children. The eldest was my grandfather, Awesome. When the flowers bloomed and the daylight hours were long, that is when God gave you to me, Sutta said to Awesome. My grandfather was raised in a mud brick house with 2 floors, a barn on the first, 4 rooms, and a kitchen on the second. He would run around and play barefoot in the streets to preserve his good pair of shoes. His parents, sisters, and brothers ate all 3 meals from the same pot with wooden spoons, sitting on the cold floor. Tables and chairs were a luxury, he told us. We had what we needed. On the coldest nights, they would light the wood-burning stove. My grandfather taught himself to read under the weakening flames of kerosene lamps. He pushed his cheeks into the old newspapers
and books he'd gathered from nearby towns. Around 500 people lived in Tazar village at that time. Most were farmers with small vegetable patches, some livestock, wheat and barley if they were lucky. The villagers produced their own food and clothing, but for sugar and oil, they would go into the neighboring city of Afyon. My great-grandfather, Ahmed, decided to open up a small shop to sell matches, salt, sugar, and kerosene. He ordered fabrics from the neighboring counties, delivering every farmer's orders on his own. He settled the farmers' debts at harvest time. My grandfather once told me, the Anatolian farmer fears God and respects all beings. He is loyal to house and home. Even if he travels far from home, he never forgets how the seasons changed his village, how his mother cared for him, how his father fought for him, and how much he owes to the soil beneath his feet. In 1930, after 5 years of developing business with other villages, my grandfather and his family left Tazlar and moved to the city of Afyon. One day, a trustworthy family friend suggested that Ahmed take his family and move to Istanbul, a day's train ride away, the city divided by continents. You're destined for bigger things, my friend, he said. You see. Thank you.
Thank you, Mina. Introduce our next reader. Jessica Denzer holds an MFA in fiction from Sarah Lawrence College and a BA from Fordham University. She is a researcher in residence at the New York Public Library and currently teaches honors writing at Fordham University and literature at Baruch College. She's a contributing editor and writer for Four Way Review, and sometimes her work gets published.
What is this? There we go. Okay, so this is an essay that I wrote last winter, and then I looked at it like last week. So we'll see how it goes. It's called All Is to Be Dear. In poem 16 of her surviving 650 fragments, Sappho writes, some say an army of horsemen, others a host of infantry, others a fleet of ships is the most beautiful thing on this black earth. But I say, it is whatever you love. These lines have been open on my coffee table for weeks now, remnants of an earlier attempt to prepare for the upcoming semester. I teach a course on ancient epics and power structures. In this class, we will spend most of our time on Homer. What I should be doing is rereading the Iliad and the Odyssey. I should be preparing lectures on the suitors whose dead bodies are piled up like fish, and the slave girls who are hung like birds. Most importantly, I should be thinking about Helen, about her abduction, about her desire. But I haven't. Instead, I scan Sappho's poetry. I read and reread the same 650 fragments, hoping for a connection between her words and everything else. Sappho writes about the same characters. She writes about Helen and of Paris, of Troy and the gods. But the only connection I really care about is the one that isn't explicitly there. The connection between sex and death, between desire and destruction. I suppose Sappho would call it love. The French have a sense of this. The phrase for orgasm in French is la petite mort, a little death, a moment of loss mixed with a moment of taking, of giving, of filling. Sappho knows this. Fragment 16 doesn't begin with what you love. It begins with an army, with infantry, with a fleet of ships. It begins with the agents of destruction. And this beginning is the rope that tethers love to violence. I reread Fragment 16 every day. It's become a ritual. I think about it when I'm doing other things, grading, teaching, talking to friends, walking my dog. When I am running, the lines move through my head like a news scroll at the bottom of the TV. Recently, a friend picked up the book and read the poem out loud to me. I took it out of his hands, blushing. His voice putting sound to my thoughts embarrassed me. but then I could think of nothing else. My friend and I spoke for a long time, not about Sappho, but about marathons he had just run as a guide for an amputee runner. I wanted to know about prosthetic limbs. As someone who runs obsessively almost every day, but who knows next to nothing about outside of my own stride, I was curious. He explained, talking about the structures of the limbs, how they work, the process of running with only half of you on the ground. Running is hard on the body. It takes out the knees, the hips, the ankles. It stresses the muscles, can cause the blood vessels to break, exhausts the lungs. These athletes will never have the perfect stride. They will always run with a limp, which puts more stress on the back, the hips, everything, my friend told me. They know they are destroying their bodies, or what's left of their bodies. But they're so positive. I guess if you love something, you just keep doing it. And then it was there again, those lines, filling up the space between us. Whatever you love. I sat silent, imagining a body without, continuing without skin, and then without muscle, and then without bone. How we continually chip away at ourselves one piece at a time. That was the end of the conversation. Eventually, my friend left, but the image of the body remained, each piece marked for execution. You do what you love, or rather, you do what you have to for love. It's perfectly easy to make this clear to everyone, Sappho continues. For she who surpassed all beauty, Helen, left behind her most noble husband and went sailing off to Troy. In The Marriage of Cadmus and Harmony, Roberto Palacio tells us that the ancient Greek word, and I'm gonna butcher this and I'm really sorry. The ancient Greek word pathetherin means to seduce, but also to destroy. The relationship between desire and destruction is in the word itself. To say it is to admit it. Language functions as action. Helen running after Paris is all in a word, and the word, the action, is both the opening and the unraveling. They know they are destroying their bodies. There are bruises all over my body. There is one on my right shoulder, another just below my left knee, one on my tailbone. Last night, half asleep, I rolled over and felt the pain of pressure against the purpled skin. This is how I discovered the bruises. In the morning, I examined my body in the mirror. I traced the blood underneath the skin with my fingers, amazed at how thin everything had become, how easy it is to hurt. Then I went for a run. I know where the bruises came from. I can close my eyes and see perfectly the movement of our bodies. The wall, the end of the sofa, later the bed. Teeth, fingers, one image, his fingers on my stomach, all 5 tips pressed into my skin, sliding down my ribcage as it narrows into my waist. Take off your jeans, he said, a man who doesn't love me. Such a simple command. I did as he asked. Afterwards, he always apologizes, though I am never sure what he is apologizing for. So often, I want the conversation to be about something other than sex, but it's always there. In the morning, there are always the marks left over to remind me of what I have allowed to be taken. There are always the bones, run down until there are no bones, no muscles, no veins, until there is nothing. Nothing is left of Troy. Greeks and Trojans, a city, a people, all dead. Hector kills Achilles' great love, Patroclus, and so is killed by Achilles. Achilles is killed by Paris, Paris killed by Philoctetes, Helen returned. Her one act of agency, her one act of love, lost. There are so many ways to tell that story, and all of them Helen loses. But is it love that Helen loses? Plato's Socrates says love is a philosopher, always searching for wisdom, which is the greatest beauty. I like this idea. Searching seems a nobler form of running, a journey somewhere, or as Socrates would argue, a journey towards a single science of beauty everywhere. What a wonderful thought. I cannot say it is untrue. I too think beauty is everywhere. But that does not stop me from thinking that ugliness is also everywhere. I witness it every morning on my way to work, decaying buildings, rust, broken things left in the street, deconstruction lit up by the morning sun. Is there not something lovely about erosion? And love is ugly, even when it is intimate and carnal. You have to be willing to be disgusting to let someone close. You have to be as gross as you are beautiful for it to mean anything in the moment. I wonder sometimes if what we desire is not sex, but the moment after sex. What we want is not the act itself, but the fact that we were brave enough to give it over to someone else. ugly enough to lose ourselves and survive. What we love is our own survival. But Sappho writes about the moment before it's over. All we have left of fragment 130 are 2 lines. Once again, limb loosen love makes me tremble, that bittersweet, irresistible creature. Anne Carson translates this line differently. She has an eros, once again, limb loosener whirls me, sweet, bitter, impossible to fight off. In her essay, Bittersweet, she examines the difficulty of these lines. It is hard to translate, she writes. Sweet bitter sounds wrong, and yet our standard English rendering bittersweet inverts the actual term of Sappho's compound. It would make sense that her ordering has descriptive intention. First eros brings sweetness, then bitterness. Is Sappho not documenting the chronological experience of a failed affair? Carson says no. She argues that the poem begins with the dramatic localization of the erotic situation in time and fixes the erotic action in the present indicative tense. She is not recording history, but the instant of desire. It is one, and then it is the other. In the moment, there are only seconds in between the pulse of pain and the pulse of pleasure. Or perhaps it is the pleasure and then the pain. I have been in a twist of limbs. I have felt the body give way and tremble in the embrace of another. I have felt the need to collect myself piece by piece. But Sappho is right about it all. It is not simply sweet, it is sweet and then it is bitter, and it is violent, even when it is sweet. To open up, to let in, to enter, to push against, to fill up and then split apart, to say yes, to say now, to say give me everything, to say make me come, are all declarations of war. In lines 6 through 12 of fragment 31, she writes, when I look at you even a moment, no speaking is left in me. No, tongue breaks and thin fire is racing under skin. And in eyes, no sight and drumming fills my ears. 2, winter is my favorite season to run. If I leave my apartment around 3:45, I am bound to hit the reservoir just at golden hour, when the pink sun lingers over the edge of the buildings surrounding Central Park. Sometimes I just run around the reservoir over and over. The other day, I watched all the seagulls form one straight line between the 2 stone buildings on either side of the water. Sometimes I don't even want to run. I just want to leap into the blue. Sometimes I want to take my hands and hold on between 2 seagulls. Eventually, I break off. I turn down a dirt path that moves north and then east. I try to wind through the woods. I look for stairs or hills that I can sprint up. I want this to be about searching. I suppose one can be running away from something just as much as they can be running towards something. It is unclear how much choice Helen has in the Iliad. The war has already begun when we enter the poem. The myths are conflicting. In the Odyssey, after Helen is returned, she claims she never wanted to go in the first place. But this too is suspect. How could she tell Telemachus, son of Odysseus, who has been missing since the end of the war, since all of that death and destruction, how can she say she had chosen to leave? How can she talk about the running? It's the running, isn't it? It doesn't matter if she was running to Paris or away from Menelaus. It's the fact that she ran in the first place. It's the running that broke everything. I imagine Helen sprinting. I imagine her fashioning her legs to work even when they don't work. I imagine her muscles ripping, her bones breaking, everything whittling away. I imagine her made of metal. She knows she is destroying her body. Still she goes. And cold sweat holds me shaking, Sappho writes in the last complete stanza of fragment 31. Grips me all greener, greener than grass. I am dead, or almost, I seem to me. We don't have the final stanza of fragment 31. It has either been lost or Sappho never finished it, but it begins, but all is to be dared. How magnificent is the incompleteness of this poem, or all of Sappho's poems. Most of the loss is because of time, because of faded quality of age. Incompleteness of a body of work is both beautiful and ugly. It is a lovely erosion, a fullness of a kind, an imagined way of being. The fragments become whole in the space left behind, in the areas of silence we dare to breathe into. To dare, to keep going even though the body ends up in pieces. There again is a runner without. The body towards something or away from something, the aches ignored, the pain used to push further, the incomplete poem. Plato claims that we cut off our own limbs if we deem them corrupted. That is how badly we wish for the good. If we perceive our own limbs as bad, we will remove them. The argument is valid.
But I wonder if we cut things off not because we seek the good, but because we are afraid. And perhaps we give over to certain kinds of love, not because we wholly love, but because we are afraid of the alternative, a life without. But a life with or without, a life whole, is a subjective idea. There is no actual physical manifestation of wholeness. A runner with one leg is still a runner. A fragment is still a statement, a moment of beauty impregnated with silence. Silence, lack, absence, those are all alive. Bones, muscles, veins. To be whole then means to have dared, or at least I hope this is true. The other morning, as I was crossing the Ward Islands Bridge, I tried to empty my head. The run did not feel very good. My pace was slow, and I was deeply tired. As I moved up the incline of the bridge, I could see the sun sparkling over the Harlem River. I watched a seagull fly overhead. You just want me because I let you use my body, I suddenly thought to myself. It felt abrasive, this unexpected sentence slipping into my mind. I breathed deep as I reached the downward turn of the bridge. My lungs felt heavy. I thought of the man who doesn't love me. I thought of how he uses my body. I thought of how I let him. I thought of my own body. Limb, loosened, love. In Carson's translation, love is not simply irresistible, but impossible to fight off. It is a battle you cannot win. What does it mean to win? I think back to our bodies, mine and the man who doesn't love me. I think of our limbs loosening each other only so that we can tighten ourselves around the whole, the opening and the unraveling. There is nothing romantic about what I am doing. There is nothing beautiful about looking for the pain. I just want to know the origin. What makes me say yes, now, always? What makes me run until it hurts and then continue? I don't think I'm looking for the good. I think I'm looking for something very different. The tether between love and violence. My hand holding on to two seagulls in the reservoir, surrounded by water, the bones whittled away, the gaps in the body, a life full, even if it means without all the pieces. But all is to be dared. Helen was right to run. The loss is worth the middle part, the center of the tether, the peak of the run, when your body gives way to inertia, the moment when everything is wrapped up, tight, held close, full, beyond thought, just heart and skin and breathing, just a brief moment. My stomach tightened into a cramp and I pressed my fingers, all five, into the ribcage as I ran. The bones and muscles breathed back against the pressure. When I hit mile 10, I stopped. I moved to the fence separating the greenway from the river. The sun was still dancing across the water, lighting everything up. I thought about the water moving, how the mouth of the river opens up near Lower Manhattan, the water flowing into the Sound and then into the Atlantic, everything moving away, running away. I wonder what the water loves. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. We have two more readers. I'll introduce Noel Levine is a graduate of Shimer College and received an MFA from Bennington. He's been published in Prelude, Crab Fat Magazine, Picus, and he's currently living in Brooklyn. No, we're not here. All right. Skip, well, then you're next. All right, so this next reader here, this is, let me introduce him. So Gabe here, he's got the next book coming out from Archway Editions. It's called Acid Virga. This is the cover art, which you can buy a t-shirt of. The book is out in a month. He's got a very cute dog there. And I'll introduce him now. Gabriel Cruz is a New Mexican poet and educator living and writing in Brooklyn. He is a co-founder of Windy's Subway Reading Room, and his work has been published in A Perfect Vacuum, an America Poetry Series, the Brooklyn Rail, Frontier Poetry, and among others.
Oh, this is lovely that I can see myself reading. It's like my everyday life, just everything I do constantly in view of myself speaking or talking or whatever. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for reading, everyone who read. That was awesome. Thank you, Archways, for doing this. And thank you for putting out my first book of poetry, which I'm very excited about. So yeah, and excited about Unpublishable. So I'm gonna read, I'm just gonna read. Okay, so this first poem is the first section of a long poem that closes out the book. And then after that, I'm gonna read a couple of things that I've been working on the last 2 days, which means that they are probably unpublishable, but they are legible enough to read. So this is from Regression, and it comes with the epigraph, "You murmur your magic, what help is the past," by Lorene Nidecker. Fall, for Carolyn. Relinquishment. At least that's what they say when the haggling's over, the act of opening the hand. But if it ever truly ends, in between our phases the experts will never recognize, interleaved with disbelief and fury, delirium, glossolalia, hysterical nostalgia, etc. Or the stage in which one eats too much Xanax, gummy bears, and caviar from the bodega around the corner, takes a nap face down, listening to the neighbor's old soul records filtered through the floorboards. As for me, I keep attempting rational sentiments despite myself. Cold comfort, an architecture of tics and rhetoric, like, it's no good hoping for accuracy from the flowcharts that mark grief's progression. The swamp, after all, is not the map, and yet one longs for an argument nonetheless. The in which the plot is laid bare, as in Paradise Lost or other arcane texts. What comes next? Savoring almost nothing before grief resurges, what remains is the tension of the chiastic structure and its spillage, as if it were an accident when describing the origins of good and evil. A hero was made of the fallen one, how elegiac rolls off the tongue with an unacknowledged hush at the beauty of others' sorrow. The devil in the details, or the accumulation of the leities so many I know and love would describe to God's catastrophic hand. Over coffee in LA, having dreamed away the night beside each other as chaste as brother and sister, you said you felt the opposite when I tried to recall the taxonomy of mediocre poets possessed by evil spirits, how the devil guides the worst poets' pens, angels the best, etc. But I never had the chance to ask you what you thought the difference was. Like me, you were appalled by angels you didn't believe in, yet still knew what it meant to be brushed by the weight of their hymn and baffled. A campy kind of aporia, like, every angel is terrifying, well-built and adorned in flame and lame. Still cross-eyed with desire, still longing to see what the future holds. How can I employ reason to make me feel what I know to be true when you're the one who animates my disbelief? Lingering like the day that's over but clings to your nerves a while, still waiting sentimentally in a year that ended sentimentally in the middle of a season, is how you put it. Like lying still on a warm evening with the impress of the pool's blue sway rippling through your equilibrium, an intaglio of motion, it washes over you, and you wake with a start, lift your face from the floorboards to return to the freezer to freshen your drink, and you read, as if by instinctual misprision, you surround me to mean a kind of dysphoria, as in, who is this body I'm embedded in? It leaves you breathless. Who are these people? That old refrain, this can't be life. How it must feel to find your own words and quotes, the body's body. As if you're anything, you're the flattening of so many into one being, possessed, not relinquished, drowning in or swaddled by them, a channel through which grief returns refreshed. The Rio River traces the Vedic carbs on the surface unchanged, yet deepened. You surround me. And I think these poems that I'm about to read, they're kind of, it's called connectome, which is like the map of neurons. And I don't really know what that means when I say it aloud. what it means to map your neurons, but that's the term for mapping your brain. And so I've been writing this kind of series of poems that's kind of about just thinking. And I'll write some and then I will read it over again. And as I'm reading and the associations that come up, I'll write into that. And so I've been running this series at Storm King for the last couple of months, and the last event of the season is this coming week on the 28th. And so some of the stuff in here is from the introductions that I've been doing for that. But some of it's new and some of it's even older than that stuff. So anyway, Connectome. I was thinking of thinking when I thought of you and what it means not to change the content of your mind, but its texture. An electrical field, it is filled with static, never quite quiet, yet something you know lies under the noise, even if you've never grasped it. I was thinking of you and of no one else, and how you wrote. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back, because I meant to read the epigraph, which I think is important. It comes from James Schuyler, and it is, when you read the poem, you will have to decide which of the yous is you, which I think becomes relevant. And then in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. Okay. Beginning again. I was thinking of thinking when I thought of you and what it means not to change the content of your mind, but its texture. An electrical field, it is filled with static, never quite quiet, yet something you know lies under the noise, even if you've never grasped it. I was thinking of you and no one else, and how you wrote, the audience is too much to think about, I think, and I want to turn my attention to smaller flashes. I was thinking of you and how far away we are, what distance means and nearness, of lockdown, alienation, and the rhetoric of estrangement, how I want to find a way to get closer, nearer. So I'm writing to you, thinking of you, and how we'd sit in silence, listening to nothing and all the quiet ticking in it. So that now when I'm alone and meditating, it feels with my eyes closed in the different silence, like you're there on the other side of my breath. I was thinking of this and how you told me that Shinryu Suzuki said that to take this posture is itself to have the right state of mind. And later, that breath is a door through which self enters on the inhale and exits as it's released, that thing that lies under all the static. I was thinking of how often I've heard you talk about the three rhythms of the body, the heart rate, the brain waves, the breath. When you change one, you can change all three, you say, but the only one you really have control over is your breath. Which made me think of the yogic nature of poetry, how when it's read aloud, it takes over our lungs. And I want to know in scientific terms what the material impact of a word is on our brain waves, let alone the transportative nuances of dialect, hearing your own accent or a sentence spoken in your mother tongue, and your synapses flashing, the sub rosa spell-like potentiality, the incantatory seductive power of the voice, how it sets the heart to beating and works its way under the skin. I was thinking of how Ted Berrigan once said, I put my poems in the space between myself and other people. And it reminded me of you and that poem you gave me by Juliana Spar, this connection of everyone with lungs, which I began to read aloud, breaking the silence, speaking new lines in between the breaths. There is space, she says, an uneven space made by the pattern of bodies. This space goes in and out of everyone's bodies. Everyone with lungs breathes the space in and out as everyone with lungs breathes the space between the hands in and out. How she slowly builds a world which is contained in and creates the absence of space which has its own shape. As everyone with lungs breathes the space of this field and the trees in this field in and out. And while I read this, I was thinking of flashes so minute they whirl as they produce the barest light, raising a hair on the arm from within, and how difficult it is to say where an idea begins or ends, like how you use the word Ouroboros, and it's exactly the sense of being led back through the same gate over and over I receive as affirmation or insistence, like how I felt when Rilke wrote, I know you touch so blissfully because the caress preserves, because the place you so tenderly cover does not vanish, because underneath it you feel pure duration, like an electric shock. To read that phrase echoed back in Niederker's progression, I must possess myself, get back into pure duration. I was thinking of all of this and of the disease, of course, and of our inability at the moment to experience what I thought it meant, which is presence, uninterrupted, without a buffer or lag or digital noise, free from the impulse that drags us away from ourselves and away from our sense of ourselves in relation to each other. I was thinking of your face, which I know so well, and how a smile or the flicker of a frown belies an inner cavalcade of sensation, how your outer self is a second self in which appearance ceaselessly rises and like dew from the morning grass floats into the air, because time cannot be measured by the discrete ticking of a clock, but only in the density of its passage as it's transformed by the polyphony of our senses, each of which is saturated with memories that lap over one another to generate harmonies, overtones, and dissonances, which are, of course, what we call experience. And then I'm going to read one more from this series. I was thinking of place and landscape and sight and space, all of these words we use to describe what is in essence a field of possibility, like the field we're in which so much has happened, or your own electrical fields, how you can feel them when we're near, enough almost to touch, or the field of the brain, its private ecotone of chemical weather patterns and primitive electrical storms. I was thinking of recursion, of how these words, which I've spoken over and over as I've written and then read and reread them, return to mean something new as I speak them again, moving in their repetition from utterance to ritual or ceremony. I was thinking of how you say that you always start with listening, and how you wonder what ceremonies might help us orient our frameworks as humans more and more create artificial intelligence. I was wondering naive, sentimental things like, what is a mind? And thinking of the song you and your grandfather, your aunt and your cousins wrote in The Good Way, how you sang together, the rock speaks beyond hearing, people listen close, I whisper, hear me, I have something to say, only to those who listen, I am always speaking. I was thinking of this song and of how Leroy Little Bear says in Listening to Stones that the human brain is a station on the radio dial, parked in one spot, it is deaf to all the other stations, the animals, rocks, trees, simultaneously broadcasting across the whole spectrum of sentience. I was thinking of these trees, receiving the noise and wondering what they know of it, and how you say to prioritize human flourishing should mean we prioritize the flourishing of all. Of this, and how in the womb our hearts entrained to the electromagnetic pulses of our fields of our mother's pulse, how our hearts are sensory organs that feel and know beyond thinking the energetic fields of the earth, the heartbeat in every stone. And I love how you wrote about how noise is your native language, how we retain the imprint of what we hear, the prosodic structure of our mother tongue, and replicate it in what scientists call cry melodies. How the jazz pianist Craig Taborn says, in the realm of improvisation, it takes diligence to enter the field of noise, and while employing all of the training of one's ear to merely be a co-presence. I was thinking again of the primacy of listening, of presence and awareness, and of your mother writing, awareness creates the duration you experience. If you try to divide duration, it's like suddenly passing a gold blade through a flame. How later, she writes, when mind extends towards sky, it may take the form of a perceived star, because respect is a portal. I was thinking of your friend saying that our goal is to develop relationships which steer us away from enslavement and towards reciprocity and respect. And while I was cleaning toilets at work last night, I was transported through the portal of your song, away from labor, where I heard the singing of the loons of Turtle Island as if a gold knife had passed through the flame of my memory, opening onto the first time I heard the primal cry of a loon rising out of the low fog on a lake in Alaska. And there I was, there. I was thinking of you and of the songs you absorbed in the womb, and how you asked, what are the genealogies of our data sets? I was thinking of the genealogy of voices, of prosody, of songs and cries, and how something that is distant in space or time, but near to us in nature, can bring us nearer to it as we draw nearer to ourselves. I was thinking of these things when I was thinking of you, and of course, of experience.
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to McGolrick. Please feel free to hang out, mingle. We have books for sale, the Unpublishable Anthology. For people on the Zoom, the link should be in the chat as well. We have t-shirts for sale. We have hot cider, and thanks.